Before I start formally our presentation, let me just give a hats off to the previous presentation, because I think it's a struggle for us in economics as well to force our students to read in something that's relevant for economics. And even for me, sometimes I struggle when I read The Economist, which is a very heavy read. And we also try to push the Brunei Times, the relevant ones, in our classes after almost every lesson. So, yeah. Today, there will be 5 of us presenting. We will be talking about collaborative teaching, specifically a case study of the impact of collaborative teaching on student and teacher learning. Alright? So, what is collaborative teaching? So, it involves the distribution of responsibility among people for planning, instruction, and evaluation for a classroom of students. Furthermore, developing a community of learners in schools in which teachers work with their peers to investigate their own teaching and how they can improve through action research will result in the most effective teacher learning as well as students learning. Okay? So who is involved in this case study? First of all, the 5 of us have at different points in time been trained as teachers at UBD. And was taught the same learning theory by the same professor. The only difference is the level of experience that we have between us 5. So Dr. Vincent is considered our mentor within the 5 in our group. Queenie, who is absent today, is in service. So there's 3 in-service teachers and 2 pre-service teachers, me, Hafiz, and Sharon. So we've yet to graduate from UBD. And it's by luck and active intervention that we find ourselves in the situation where we are able to work together and teach economics using the same learning theory. Okay? And in that way we can bridge the gap between what we've learned in university and how we teach in schools. Basically putting into practice what we've learned. So these are the classes involved, both upper 6 and lower 6. So there's a number of lessons there, and the hours clocked, and all the topics that have been taught by us 5 or 3 or 5 of us. Alright? So, yeah. So where does the collaboration occur? It occurs before the lesson, where we design the lessons together, sometimes half an hour before the lesson because there's so much things to do. There's also, during the lesson itself, we take turns. We take turns teaching. It depends on our area of expertise as well. So if I'm good at one topic, I can teach that topic. And after the lesson, we get together and discuss what we should do, the good and the bad. We evaluate the good and the bad. And if it's bad, we redesign the lesson and reconduct it in a different way. So we resolve the issues early. And we do that cycle again for the next lesson. So what happens in our classes from the perspective of our students is that at the beginning they are given a pre-test of the new topic to assess what they know and what they don't know. And then that is followed up by activities that are designed to let them explore the topic in groups. So they do this on their own in groups. Then followed by the explanation from the teachers, and then we continue to probe that topic further through discussions among the teachers and the students. So all of us get involved. And then the teachers can conclude the lesson. And finally we give a post-test, which is basically the same thing as the pre-test, to find out what has changed or not, whether they have learned the new topic well or not. And we give them further assessments such as homeworks and essays that the teachers can evaluate together before the next lesson. Or we redesign the lesson and reconduct the lesson if it doesn't work. And this cycle continues for the next lesson. So, both me and Sharon have been given the upper 6 to teach before a few months before qualifying last year. Yeah. And at that time they were learning about monetary policy, specifically about central banks and their policy targets. After that lesson, we found that the students couldn't relate to something so literally foreign to them. So I suggested after the lesson that maybe we should bring the lesson to something closer to home. So we decided to base the next lesson on our own de facto central bank, which is the AMBD. Let me see. Then, for that next lesson, we managed to create an activity based on this scenario. So this came from all the teachers, the 5 of us working together. We made a scenario for the students, and then they had to role play. They had to group together and role play as members of the Monetary Policy Committee. So, and we're given this data. So based on this data, they had to answer several questions. Here, they had to decide whether to introduce a loan cap or not to introduce a loan cap, which is something like the TDSR, if you're familiar with that. Okay. In another lesson, we managed to bring something that they can actually relate to, which is their 45 monthly allowance or bus transport. And they in groups have to discuss, decide, and justify their reasons as policymakers. So we're putting that responsibility in their hands in a safe environment. Maybe, who knows, one day they'll become policymakers, right? So at least they had practice. In another one, we explored the issue of old age pensions. Should we give them to all old age pensioners, or should we target specifically to those who need them? So these are real issues that we are, giving them in the Bruneian context. It's not something that you can find examples of in textbooks, which are usually from the UK or from other countries, right? So, yeah, we're bridging that gap as well. So it's more relatable to them. So in this case, they had to do this as homework individually. So they had to discuss, decide, and justify their answers. And this is some of the things that they had to say. I enjoyed the activity where we role-played as the Monetary Policy Committee in making decisions. And the other one, mine, the English, but I think he or she means maybe the activities were unforgettable for them. Is this a good thing? Maybe it is, right? So, apart from that, let me just say a few things from our perspective as teachers. We couldn't have designed this lesson if it was just me individually. I mean, I could bring AMBD, but then what am I going to do to it? We came up with that scenario together. If it was an individual work, it would probably have turned out to be something completely different. Okay? So in terms of assessment of students' work, even here we collaborated. We worked together, we marked individual works, individual essays, and we put them side by side and decided what marks to give to the students. So this is a snapshot of what we did together. We gave comments and we gave marks to them. And here's another one. So there's a lot of work, but it's worth it for the students, isn't it? So let's move on to the lower 6, and it will be presented by Najmah.
Yeah, I think I'll use the microphone. Okay, so Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good afternoon. So as you all know, I was a new teacher in PTET, right? Last year, end of July, just before the collaboration teaching started in early August. I just came in late July, 29 exactly. So meaning to say, I didn't have much experience as well, other than my 1 year teaching experience. Okay, so initially I would have taught my students like this. Okay, so however, after much discussions with the much experienced teachers, right? They have experience before, and also with the new teachers, Sharon and Hafizuddin. So we thought that this lesson wouldn't work. Why? And then we redesigned the lesson like this. For your information, these are the real receipts last year, circulated around in WhatsApp. Okay, so what happened here? What is this? the receipts, right? People going abroad to Miri, I guess. Okay, so what's the difference between this lesson, this design and the previous design was, there was too many things going on in this lesson. Different people, different currencies, different countries, different numbers. Okay? In this lesson, we kept the currencies the same. We kept the 300 the same as well, coincidentally. Okay? So the objective of this lesson is to is the effects of exchange rate on export and import. So it's clear that here the impact of the effects of the exchange rate. For example, you know, the amount of RM that you got in different times. Okay, so this is consistent with the objectives of the lesson. And this design came from the discussion from the 5 of us. I couldn't have designed this lesson without the other 4 teachers, really. Okay, so and also this is the real life example, right? So we want to make it, we want to make the learning more meaningful for the students. They're able to relate to this, right? The example is Brunei and Malaysia, whereas before it was Japan, US, UK, right? Okay, so what have I learned from collaborative teaching is that I thought that teaching is just was just transmitting information to the students, but that is not really the case, right? So so now I have been doing my own mini research in my lesson. Okay, for example, in this topic recently, the textbook and you know how the other economics teachers normally do, they teach supply and demand separately and they put it together. Okay, however, this time I challenged the textbook and the traditional method. I teach them together because you learn from difference. We learn from, you know, if you cannot differentiate supply without teaching demand. That's why I teach it that way. And this is the comment from a lower 6 student this year, and she had an economics background before. Okay, so I think this lesson was more meaningful for her than her lesson in her previous school. So, and also this is not really easy, right, for me to do my own mini research in my lesson. So I have always seek advices as well from Dr. Vincent and Queenie as well. Okay, I think, yeah, I learned so much from the collaborative teaching. Okay, so and Queenie, we apologize that Queenie won't be able to come to this forum, but she's here in spirit because she has to attend the SBC meeting. So we have her pre-recorded audio.
Hello everyone, I'm Queenie. Unfortunately, I can't be with you all today, but here's my experience of team teaching. Team teaching has always been part of my teaching methodology since I started work. That was back in 2012. Last year, when I just got back from UBD, I was given the chance again to collaborate with 2 PTET tutors and 2 MT students. To be honest, this is my 4th time working with a group of tutors in PTET. The team consistently brings in new effective teaching materials that I've never thought of. I find it quite useful for my future lessons. I like how the lessons really focus on the way students think and learn. Furthermore, these materials could also be shared with other economic tutors who are interested in co-teaching. After studying and teaching, my view on teaching and learning has changed. And with the experience I got with this team, I became more open to constructive criticism and different perspectives on planning lessons. Of course, we had disagreements sometimes, But that's okay, right? Most importantly, we were able to resolve it at the end of the discussion. And what's more, we are all doing this for the benefit of students' learning. I think that's it for my part. Now I would like to pass this mic to Dr. Vincent. Thank you.
So it's as if Ying is here. She's actually present. So what I would like to do is to compare, if you like, the difference between working alone, and this is what we are used to. We organize, we teach and prepare lessons alone a lot of the time. Yeah. And what if we are able to organize 1 or 2 lessons together? For example, maybe in a year, try and organize 1 or 2 lessons where teachers can actually collaborate. The process here is that we normally think about content, we plan what we want to teach, how to teach it, we implement it, and then we evaluate it. And most of the time we do this alone. And we know the challenges of doing this alone are quite great. For example, if we teach alone, we are more likely to be unaware of the challenges and difficulties faced by students. Because we are always in front and the students are hopefully listening to us, we might focus on 1 or 2 aspects. But we might not really know what our students are thinking and what our students are really learning in the classroom. Secondly, we might be unaware of better ways of handling the content. So we might think that this is a particular, we are used to a particular way of teaching something because of our previous experience. But if we open it up, open a lesson up and listen to someone else, they might offer us something different, which could be better. And you have already heard this afternoon, for example, how lessons could be better. Thirdly, if we do it alone, it's quite difficult to plan lessons alone. That when I'm talking here about lessons that will help all students to learn better, not just one group of students. We're talking about if there are 20 in a class, we want all 20 to learn in the best way possible. But what if we try and work together? We try and plan our lessons, our content together, and how to teach it. We implement it together as was discussed, and then we try and evaluate it. What are the opportunities for learning here? I think if we organize this with our peers, there are, for example, number 1, we can learn the students' different ways of understanding the content. So if we do it alone, most of the time we don't pick up. We don't pick up what students are thinking. But if we have colleagues in the room, in the classroom, it is possible that during the post-lesson evaluation, these will come up. Secondly, how the teachers handle the content. Many teachers, the moment you put them together, they will have different ways of handling it. And that's a good thing, not a bad thing. And we can use that to plan lessons that are very effective for our students. And thirdly, when we discuss lessons, what we want to do is we want to design those lessons in such a way that everybody benefits. Now that's a big challenge. So now the thing is, what if we can organize this on maybe a termly basis or maybe once a year, annual basis, work together as a group. This idea of working together as a group is not new. In 1999, a very important book called The Teaching Gap was published by Stigler and Hibbert, James Stigler, James Hibbert, both professors from UCLA. And they came up with this quote, which I like particularly. When people work in groups to improve instructions, teachers are able to develop a shared language for describing and analyzing classroom teaching, and to teach each other about teaching. And I think as a mentor, I'm very fortunate to have Hafiz and Sharon. Although you came just before qualifying, I said to you guys, go and teach the class. So there was a bit of skepticism in the beginning, But I said, I think I can learn from you guys. And true enough, just opening up the class, getting you guys to come in, see how you would approach it, was really wonderful for the students. Hafiz mentioned one thing the other time. He used that word, cutting edge. The work that we do in PTET here is cutting edge. And I asked him again earlier what he meant by that. And he said cutting edge is innovation, something that he has never seen before. And I found the comment very interesting, because normally when you talk about cutting edge, it will be associated with things in the manufacturing sector, new ideas, new methods, and so on. But for him to say that doing the work here is cutting edge, I think that's a very good testimony. So that's it from me, and can I pass on this mic to Sharon?
Good afternoon, everyone. So, my name is Sharon. I'm going to talk about what I've learned and how was the class carried out. Okay, so let's start off with what I've learned. So, through collaborative teaching, I was able to learn from other teachers, because we had different area of specialization. Yeah. So, for example, Hafiz was very good with his presentation skill. So he made very nice slides. And he was very knowledgeable about A and BD also. And Najmah was very good with applying variation theory for our framework of the lesson. And Queenie was very good with data response and analyzing data. Yeah. And I was also able to learn from the different views of the other teachers. So we all had different approach to teaching. Yeah. So each method will have their own merits. So when we come together and we share how we're going to teach a lesson, we are able to combine it, and we also try to pick the best approach and then combine it together for a better lesson plan. Okay. And lastly, I was also able to learn from the way that the other teachers teach. So when we do collaborative teaching, we take turn. So when I'm at the back and observing other teachers, I can learn from them. And when I'm the leading teacher in front, the teachers can share comments to me and say how I can improve my teaching. Yeah. So I've learned a lot from collaborative teaching, and now I'm going to talk about how was the class, how do we conduct the class. Okay. So in the beginning, we usually have one teacher, a lead teacher, who will start the lesson, introducing the topic and then concluding at the end. Yeah. And most of the time we'll spend with doing activity with the students, as you can see from the slides. Yeah. So we'll split the students into different groups, five different groups. And then they will go to each teacher and we will teach them individually. Yeah, so it's like a mini classroom in the group. Okay, but we had a bit of a problem was that we all started with the same content. We have the same content, but each teacher was teaching very differently. Yeah, so when we asked the students for a reflection around September last year, this is what the students said. Okay, they said that we have discussion, we have different groups, but then it's kind of unfair because some of the teachers were teaching better. Yeah, so because some of the teachers, they are more experienced, so the students actually see that. So and they were a bit unhappy about that. And then, okay, but besides that, we did get some good comments. So the students also said they were learning, they got different methods of different definition. Okay, and then we have very different examples for them to choose from. And the other good point that they pointed out was that they don't have to wait for the class to end to ask for a question, because we were always there. So they don't have to wait for the lead teacher, they can just ask any teacher who is around them. Okay, so after hearing the complaint from the students about having different, they say being unfair, we went back and we tried to redesign our lessons a bit. Okay, so the next time we still do class activity, we still do the activity of discussion, but this time we rotated the teachers. As in, the students will rotate. We rotate the students so that they have a few minutes with each teacher. Yeah, but that didn't quite turn out as well. It wasn't as good. So we tried to redesign again. So the last time, instead of us going in and having our own mini class, we decided to just sit there and listen to the students. Yeah, so we, as the students discuss among themselves, we just quietly listen and not say anything. Okay, so and this, because as we were listening, we managed to know how the students are discussing and any issues that they have, and we can then report back to our when we are together for our post-lesson discussion, and then we can try to work out on the issues that the students have. Okay, so we think this is so over time we have managed to improve our teaching styles and also address the issues that we had. Okay, in conclusion, I would like to say that the collaborative teaching has been a very valuable experience for all of teachers. Okay, if you're open-minded to new things, collaborative teaching might be the things for you. But for collaborating teaching to take place, there are a few things to keep in mind. Okay, remember that the main goal of us team teaching is to improve the students' learning. Okay, and for collaborative teaching to take place, it does need a very supportive environment. For example, here in the PTET, the admin is always regularly updated about what we are doing. Okay. Also, as a teacher, you need to open up your class to the other teachers. Yeah. So this will give you an opportunity to update yourself with the latest learning theories and also opportunity to learn from other teachers with different teaching style. Okay. So teachers need to experience differences to learn. Okay. So give collaborative teaching a try and find ways to resolve any problem that may arise as soon as possible. So in the ending, we just want to say this. While collaborative teaching has its own difficulties, we believe it will provide a great opportunity to learn for both the experienced teachers and beginning teachers. Okay, thank you.